Hey everybody, welcome back to Trident Wargaming. This is season 4, and we are kicking off the new year right. I'm joined by the powerful JT from On Tabletop. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So we're going to be having an exciting episode, actually. It's going to be talking about Gamescom 2024, which we're going to be helping On Tabletop with some terrain with their narrative. That's going to be happening in June. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, we usually open up with a little bit of hobby progress. JT, I'll put you on the spot first as the guest. What have you been working on the last week or last little while?
Christmas is always tough over December to try to find time to work on stuff. Right now I've got my Votan on the table. I'm waiting for some custom head bits to come in to make my Judge Cadets. The Judgment Corps will see the table this year. They're all Judge Dredd themed Votan, awesome. So they're gonna make it on the table this year, I hope. And then I've got, because I got the Christmas box, and that's just a killer deal. Like, that was just such a cool thing. So that's working. And then I've got my Eldar are needing some love and tenderness because they don't travel very well, them spiky little boys. So they're being worked on as well. And then it's a bit of a gut of my hobby room. I've got so much stuff that it just gets to a point where you're like, okay, I got to pare this down. I got to Marie Kondo this stuff. But I don't give it away. I don't throw it away. I put it in the room that nobody knows about.
The secret room.
The secret room. Yeah. But primarily right now, it's getting my Votan ready. And I've got a couple of tournaments over the next few weeks before we hit GameCon. Through March, and then Wet Coast is at Easter, so I'll have to have depending on what codexes and what FAQs drop. I mean, things are going to change, so making sure I'm ready for all possible eventualities. But that's what's on my table at the moment.
That's awesome. Sounds quite busy for sure.
Oh yeah, but they wouldn't have it any other way.
It seems to be the way for hobbyists, right? There's always multiple pokers in the fire, yep. Like ourselves here included. Recently, I got my hobby room put back together. Some of the listeners from last season, I was telling them my stories of woe, and I had a green screening behind me just because everything was under construction and stripped out. So it was nice to put the hobby room back. It was nice to get all my pictures and artwork hung up on the wall. Lately, I've just been actually airbrushing a ton of my Space Marines. We have our BetaB 2.0 relaunch of the campaign. We're doing a local league for BetaB War. And we've got, I think, 18 or 20 players signed up for it. And everyone's going to be rocking out different chapters. So it's been nice. I've been cranking through my executioners, trying to get them all ready to go. I'm really looking forward to throwing them on the table. I do have a Drukhari army on ice right now. I was kind of waiting to see what the balance data slate update was going to be like.
Things a little right now.
Yeah, so it's just, I'm fine with them kind of being on the back burner for now while I work on power armor. It's definitely a lot nicer than all the little spindly bits. So,
yeah, I have still permanent injuries under fingernails from all my spiky Drukhari. They don't travel well. That's the problem. They really don't travel well. Even with magnets, they still don't travel very well.
No, it's just very fragile. Which, yeah, I appreciate power armor because it's very robust in game and also in model form. So.
Exactly. That's why I'm loving the Votan. I don't care if I drop them. They're so small, it doesn't matter. They can't achieve any kind of acceleration. They're too small.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I guess, so Gamescom 2024, we're actually going to be helping you guys out with terrain and working with you for the narrative. I guess, what can we tell the listeners about the event?
Well, it's in June. Does that help?
It does, yes.
First off, thank you so much for all the help with the terrain. It literally doesn't happen if we don't have somebody local to help out. Even if it were in Vancouver, it would be incredibly difficult for us to move everything from our studio and bring that to wherever we need to be. We will be bringing some stuff with us, some iconic pieces from some of our narrative pieces in 40K and 40 minutes. But without local support, it just doesn't happen. So big shout out to you guys and the guys at Red Claw for all the assistance that you guys are bringing. Because like I said, it wouldn't happen without it. We love the fact that local gamers and local communities can be involved in this kind of stuff. That's sort of why we did this. We wanted to bring the energy that we bring to our locals to the world. And the fact that, with Ogres did last year in Calgary and made that event fantastic, and with Red Claw and yourself, Bill, this year, we're just looking to make this an experience that people are going to walk away from going, man, I want to do that again. We're definitely not on the scale that Games Workshop and the Grand Narrative is. However, we have insights into the Grand Narrative and how it works, so we can steal some tricks. I mean, borrow some ideas from them to help make everybody's experience and everybody feel like they're contributing to the actual event. And that's sort of the goal. We want everybody to be a part of it. And in that weekend, make this microcosm of a community that everybody feels like they are taking part. And it's super fun. And that's our overarching goal for what this is. Nick has come up with some pretty cool concepts and a whole entire solar system this time instead of a single planet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because, of course, we've doubled the number of players that we did last year. I think last year we were, I want to say it was 25 tables, so 50 players, and I think we've got space for 100 this year.
Yeah, that's going to be killer.
That's going to be fantastic. There's going to be multiple teams. Your team might switch. Last year we had a traitor. Everything was sort of a chaos with Xenos, and you weren't sure who you're working for. And each team actually had a traitor who was actively working for the other side. So when they submitted their scores, we'd switch them.
Oh,
because
awesome.
They're helping the other guys. So they were winning games, but it was actually helping their team, even though it was really a lot of fun. And we had an Alpha Legion traitor in each team.
I was going to ask, yeah, it sounds like Alpha Legion to me for sure.
Oh, for sure. We walked around the entire weekend talking about I am Alfarius. And every time we would address the crowd, it was, so Nick's Alfarius, and I just wanted to mention, and it was like, people like, what? And it was so much fun to kind of mess with people, but in a fun way.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times narrative stuff can get really one-sided really quick if you're not paying attention. So that's our goal. Narrative, fun, focused, everybody involved, and making this just sort of an event. It's not a tournament. So if you're coming to think, oh, I'm going to smash my opponents, wrong event. No, this is about fun, fluffy lists. This is about some silliness. This is about, hey, I haven't got to play this unit forever, so I'm going to bring it. And that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for.
That's always nice. It's always, I always appreciate being able to, play and even take part in any or host narrative style games or events. It takes the seriousness out of it where you can have more fun. Coming off like a decade of playing Horus Heresy, where we were playing really hard, and then we started to kind of really lean more into narrative stuff, and it was refreshing and felt just more relaxed as an atmosphere to play.
Yeah, it's always the energy you bring to the table. And one of the goals at Play On, we always try to make sure that our opponent is having the best possible game that they can have. Especially when it's a guest, you've got lights, you've got cameras, you've got people standing around in the background, you've got things going on. It can get very overwhelming, but as long as at the table, we're trying to make sure that our opponent is having the best possible game they have. And if you carry that to your local or to a pickup game, make sure that your opponent is having the best game that they can. That means that you're going to have the best game you can. And that just makes the game better.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. We've talked about it before on previous episodes with this whole, you're essentially coming in with a social contract when you're coming to play anybody, especially at a tournament. Like, you kind of know what you're at for, but when you're going for these narrative events, and that's the thing, and a thing that we've really tried to hammer the point is, like, be the player and the hobbyist that you wish you met when you first started.
Yeah, that's a great line.
Right? So you can that really is. You can really try and be that leading example in the community, in your local, or even abroad, of this is what I think like an actual tabletop gamer is. And, be approachable, paint well, have fun playing. If you have to play hard, play hard. If you're going to play for fun. But really just be the best example of a gamer you can be.
Yeah, and kind of play to the level of what your opponent is bringing. Painting is always one of those things that is so super subjective. What somebody's concept of art is and somebody else's cannot necessarily jive, but at least show up with painted models. And I'm sure people are going to hate me saying that, but it really is incredibly simple now with the contrast speed paints that everybody is making, the sketch and glaze concept, the slap chop method, whatever you want to call it, you can put paint on your models. Does it look perfect? No. But what it does is it increases that level of immersion. You know, let's face it, we're grown men and women playing with space Barbies.
Yeah.
It's space G.I. Joes, space Barbies, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. And at its very core, everything we add on top of that, it's literally we're playing with toy soldiers. And this is a hobby that has been around for thousands of years. I mean, literally, chess is playing with toy soldiers.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about spending the time and effort to make it look cool. Oh, these guys are this squad from this comic book or from this novel. And then it's like, this guy really, this person loves what they're playing, and it just brings you into it more. So yeah, be the person you wish that, I love that. Be the person that you wish you'd met when you started the hobby. That's great.
Yeah. And that's always a nice thing too, especially with the painting is a mantra that I've often started to follow. I heard it years ago, but it was finished, not perfect. So it doesn't matter like where you are in your painting ability, is if it's finished and you're happy with it, that's all that matters. Because again, like you said, it is subjective, and what's cool to you may not be to me, but we can appreciate at least the effort everybody puts in to try to bring that level of immersion to a game.
Yeah, and that's really what it is it's effort. You know, it's if you show up to a beer league softball game and you're the only guy not wearing a jersey, you stand out.
Yeah.
Because you don't care to wear a jersey. And there's even softball is like, I played it for years. You have to wear all the same color or all the same jerseys if you're going to play in a softball tournament. Yeah. That's just the rules. I'm sure there's small tournaments that don't care. There's fun tournaments that don't care. But if you're playing in an SPN tournament, yes, I air quoted and you can't see it because of my background, but that's okay. SPN, it says you all have to wear matching jerseys and you can't have the same numbers. It's just a standard. So when I see people raging about why do I have to have painted to show up a tournament, because it's a tournament. That's literally it. Because you're showing your opponents respect. You're saying, hey, I'm bringing something that I've spent time on that is important to me. Back in the worst days of 5th and 6th edition, yes, I remember the brief blip that was 6th. Everybody was hardcore meta chasing, and gray plastic was the norm. I genuinely believe, is my hot take for the day, just for your podcast, Bill, that adding 10 points for painting was the greatest thing that Games Workshop could have ever done to their game.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that statement. It's 3-color minimum isn't hard. Like the battle ready standard also isn't hard to achieve. It's that bare minimum to come. I know a lot of the events we have, we really do enforce the battle ready 10-point painted, and you're not required to paint. It is preferred, just because you don't want to get into the whole gatekeeping thing. And not that I think it's gatekeeping having painting requirements. We want to open up to as many players as we can. But I've lost games because my army's not fully painted, and I'm like, that burns. Like, if I just put that little extra in and I actually was painted, like I would have won. That's, you know what? I'm going to paint my stuff, right? Like
it's just a little bit of motivation, right?
Yeah.
And it genuinely does not take the amount of time that people think it does. And there's always edge cases, and there's always people who can or can't. I think it's named, what is their name? I think it's Mango Smasher out of the UK. They actually paint stuff for free for friends and people because they can't paint. At least they used to. I'm not sure what they're doing right now because their Instagram has been kind of all over the place. But I love watching their follow up. I love watching their stuff. But again, it's you can find somebody who's like, yeah, buy me lunch and I'll slap chop your army for you in an afternoon.
Yeah,
that's not bad, right?
No, absolutely not.
The concept of it has to be perfect before I can put it on the table. I don't get it. Like you said, it's finished, not perfect.
Yeah.
My Eldar army is not finished, but I still do well in painting for scored painting, but it's not finished.
Well, that's the thing. Like, always having like that influx of new players jumping in to come down, play local. They're always like, oh yeah, I want to start painting, do my thing. I'm like, just, you know what? The only advice I can give you is just start painting, keep going, because once you're 3, 4, 5 squads in, you're going to look back at your first squad and be like, I want to repaint that. Just don't. Just finish off your army. You'll learn a lot along the way, and then if you want to get done and it's finished, at least you can go back to the beginning, touch up or strip and repaint, and that's just it. You'll keep evolving all the time, but keep that first squad you did, because that's a reminder. That's your snapshot in time of where you were at that moment, and you can actually see you can see the progression. And I've seen guys, hey, it's been a year, got my army painted. I'm like, dude, look at you go! Like one of our friends, Brian, he recently kind of got back in. We were chatting. I met him through work. We were chatting about the hobby. He jumped in, started painting, and now he's on a roll. Like, he's painted more than I have in the last little while. He's gone back to his early models, stripped down, repainted. Like, he's just phenomenally, like, just getting so much better. And it's awesome to see the progress. Like, I love watching people flourish when they're applying time and energy and effort into it. It's just the best.
Well, Nick just did that. Nick just went back and decided to go with a new paint scheme for his Tau that has evolved over the years. He's changed the basing, so now they're all sort of a beach themed.
Oh, cool.
He's redone his whites. He's got a different orange, so it has kind of a play-on-ish sort of colors. But his technique, his skill level, his ability, just over the years, and he's not even a hardcore hobbyist in that sense. But going back and going, I'd like to redo my crisis suits. They look amazing. And I told him, I said, that white is so much smoother, because white's a real nightmare if you've tried to, especially if you start with a white. The secret to white, don't use white.
Don't use white, yeah.
He is so much smoother, cleaner. They look better. And the other stuff look great. But this looks even better. It's just that little bit. And it's just maturing as an artist is what it is. Because it is an art. I mean, it's a hobby and it's an art and it's a social gathering. And it's a pretty amazing hobby. And you can have beverages if you choose to while you're playing.
Absolutely. The nice part about our local is every Thursday we have like our Trident community game nights. It's hosted at a local fraternity of the Eagles Club. And they actually have a bar there, so we can partake. Nice. We can have a couple of pops while we're playing. Have some little pub food. The dry ribs is what we would go for, and then
dry ribs are good.
You're just chatting, having the game, just shooting the shit while you're playing. It's such a nice atmosphere. And then once you get all the hobbyists together at the end of the night, games are done, everyone's chatting. I love having the social circle. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. Like we welcome pretty much everybody to come and play. And my only advice is to anyone jumping in is don't be afraid to jump into a new local. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because a lot of the groups are very welcoming. And ask questions about painting, because everyone just wants to share their experience and help everybody. Like, I don't think anyone was like, no, I'm not going to tell you my secrets. Everyone wants to share their stuff, because if I can give you one little point of advice and you're like, dude, that gold you told me about, it looks so good. I'm like, oh, awesome. Like, that's, I don't know. That's kind of where I get my jollies from the gaming, right? Like, it's just the experience of the games, having a debrief about what your game was like, and then talking hobby hacks, painting tips, everything else. It's just, to me, that's just the best.
And then, talking about, units that maybe aren't the best. How do we make those work? How can they work in a narrative? How can they work in a competitive? Yeah. And then what is the most cutthroat this? And there's so many fun ways to hobby and to enjoy this hobby, that those social meetings, those sit downs, whether it's 10 people, 1,000 people, that's the best part about tournaments. That's the most fun, is sitting in a room with like-minded individuals. There's been a few events where I've literally just sat back and looked around the room and thought, you know what? I don't know what anybody's personal leanings are about politics, religion, activism. Don't care. We're all Warhammer 40,000 players, and we're all sharing hobby tips and and tournament tips and quick playing tips and sportsmanship tips and things that we've found over the years. And it brings a community together, unlike a lot of other hobbies, which tend to be a little solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really that's the best advice too. Don't paint in a vacuum. Post your stuff. Share it.
Yeah.
Send it to a buddy. Hey, what do you think of this? And be open to their feedback, because they might see something you don't. Yeah, it's such a cool hobby. I love it.
Absolutely.
I'm an old man, and I love it.
It's been good. How long have you been in the hobby for?
Oh, Rogue Trader.
Oh, okay. So a little bit before me. I jumped in second as a young young lad, and I've never looked back. It's honestly been one of the best decisions I think I've ever made, and I think it's actually contributed to the circle of friends that I still have. A lot of people that I still talk with, and we frequently chat. Don't game as often as I'd like, but I've known these guys since like junior high, elementary, some of them, and it's awesome because you go to different schools, you have different walks of life, but we were always meeting up on Saturday, having our games, right? Hungover or not, going to the bar, guys rolling in with his club clothes, he's got a stamp on his hand, and you're like, oh man, he hung over, but he's like, yeah, let's do this, let's throw down. And you're like, this is awesome. Like, it's just the best times, right?
Well, second and third was kind of when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I guess. So that's the time that I found dating.
Yeah.
and this is more fun right now, anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that was sort of my brief respite from the hobby, but still kept all my stuff, of course, right? And then it was like, I guess, fourth that I kind of came back. Fourth, and then of course fifth was huge for the game, and then sixth and seventh were meh, and then eighth was okay, this is cool, and then ninth was amazing, and I think 10th is the best version of the game that they have ever put out. Period.
10th feels really good. Better. It really does.
It does. Yeah, and that's why I'm super excited for GameCon 2024, because we did 2023. We did the end of ninth. So it was actually hard to keep track of some of the rules in my head. Because I'm like, okay, no, wait a minute, that doesn't work like, it does work like that. Yeah, you're good. That's how combat works. You're good. But it's 10th. It's just it's a way more intuitive rule set than ninth was in a lot of ways, and they've taken a lot of shenanigans out, and they're really quick to change some of the more broken combinations,
which is great.
Necrons today just got nerfed.
Yeah, I saw. I know there's we're hosting our weekend tournament. It's our LVO Can't Go, kind of for like event prep, and we're not using it because we had rules and list cutoffs and everything set for the 5th. Yeah. And then I know we've been reading the forums explode where they're using it, and I'm like, but they have it in their packs, guys. It's very clearly stated anything after the 11th won't be used, and it's the 10th, so it's okay, right? Like,
yeah, get exactly.
That. It's just but that's the nice thing. I don't think we've ever had the support that we have right now in the games.
I agree.
And it's really nice to see them kind of breaking up those wombo combos, and it feels more of a generalship game to me, and obviously based on the dice gods and what cards you're pulling, unless you're going fixed. But it feels more, it's on the general onus of how you're playing, how you're strategizing, and watching some of these guys at the really high levels play. Just, you're like, whoa, man, that's next level for me. But it's just cool to watch their minds work, right, as they're playing. So it's been an awesome journey already.
Yeah, a big part of that, I think, is the standardized terrain layouts that Games Workshop uses at their events that everybody has quickly adopted. That gives you the ability to implement the changes as intended. Yeah. And that's a big part of it. I mean, you've run tournaments for years. I've run tournaments for years. Terrain is always rule number. Okay, what are we doing for terrain? Do we have enough? Have we got enough? How are we playing this? How are we playing that? Yeah. And oftentimes we'll say to players, figure out what makes sense. But if one player has more experience than another player, they may not see what that player is seeing, and they may take advantage of that. Yeah. So with the 10th edition rule set and Leviathan games, the GT games, the terrain is very simple. It's very straightforward. It doesn't necessarily matter what you put on it. Each piece does a specific thing, and it's the base plate that matters more than anything else.
Yeah.
So it's made some units viable, and it's made some units incredibly powerful. Looking at you, my 10-blocker Wraithguard. They are arguably the best infantry in the game because of the terrain. That said, that doesn't make them broken. They don't have clear lines of sight. You can't just shoot from one board edge to another. And you have to be able to get up, take objectives, and engage with the enemy. So it forces a kind of list building that is almost mandates a take all comers list.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it really changes it.
No, it's true. I had a bunch of people ask, like, is it more shooty? Is it more combat? And I was like, I don't know. Like, for me, it feels maybe like 55-45, like leaning towards shooting. But with the way the terrain setups are, it's not lines everywhere. Like, everyone's busting out laser lines, right? Trying to find angles and stuff. And it's like, this is awesome. It's very hard, like, to really get a good bead on, and I think that's a better way to play. It makes it feel very, very balanced, right, when you're having these games. So,
and the change to the fly keyword, where at first it was incredibly awkward to work with, when you look at the terrain layouts, it makes it so that fly is important, but it's not an automatic win.
Yeah.
You still need to be able to maneuver. Running through a building can actually get you to a place faster than an aircraft flying around a corner.
Yeah.
Or going up and over. And that's important, because it means that your foot lists can survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the game itself, balance-wise, design-wise, I think they've done a really good job. Yeah. Let's just hope they keep it up.
Yeah, well, like, as is, I think we're 5.5 months in so far.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, what are we? April last year? August?
I think around somewhere in the summer. But the future looks bright. Like, if this is just the beginning, obviously we got a whack of codex releases and everything to come, and I'm blown away. I think the support's been phenomenal. The nice thing too, and one thing to really make mention is don't forget to peek at that rules commentary document. It's 18 pages. It's gonna feel dry as hell. But honestly, like, there's so many little nuanced things that they address. You're just like, oh, I'm going to do this. Actually, you can't do that. They do talk about that in that rules commentary. Well, who reads that? Like, we have. And that's a big shout out to our buddy Scott, because he's really pushed that. He's like, it's in the rules commentary, guys. And we're like, oh, shit, really? Like,
Scott's a smart man.
Yeah.
I've read that document. I've read, as part of my role, when we do get codexes, I read them. I go through, I try to figure out how things work, how they interact, and when we're at the table, oftentimes we're very time pressed when we get a new release coming, and then we're trying to hit that embargo date so that we can release it day of, and really take advantage of the marketing machine that is Games Workshop.
Absolutely.
I mean, why wouldn't you? It's huge, and it helps us and it helps them. But I spent a lot of time reading and researching and trying to understand and going back to that rules doc and back to that commentary, and I still miss stuff. It's so easy to do because it is still a complex game.
It is.
It's not like Combat Patrol, easy.
No.
And it's kind of checkers, whereas 40K is sort of chess.
It is.
It's like checkers with attitude, maybe, for Combat Patrol.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to start the game because it teaches you the fundamentals and the basics.
Absolutely. It definitely feels simplified, but not simple. Like, it's
hey, I've heard that somewhere,
right? Yeah, it's as deep as you go, though. Like, I know a lot of people like, oh, it seems too easy. It's like, that's for kids. I don't know, man. Like, I'm a grown man, and there's still things I'm like, oh shit, there's some in depth. Like, as deep as you want to go, you can really flex your brain and get that tactical kind of satisfaction from it. And I love that about 10th. It's just been great for that.
Yeah, and I love that about the competitive aspect of 10th edition as well, is that you're capable of finding combinations and doing things. You both have the expectation that we're going to smash each other.
Yeah.
And that's what competitive is, typically. I mean, it's the hobby's still important, the sportsmanship's still important, but the social contract of we're just trying to win this game as quickly as we possibly can so that we can rest for the next game. It's a different mindset for a lot of players. And finding those, I mean, the Necron combination was pretty obviously broken. That was just an unintended wording, and I'm sorry if you based your entire hobby life on that, but you had to know it was coming.
Yeah.
Like spamming Wraithguard with pistol and always fight and bring one back. If you bought a bunch of Wraithguard, I don't have a ton of pity. Because dudes, this has happened before.
Yeah.
Whoops, we screwed up. We're gonna fix it. Like literally the entire Votann army. Whoops, that was the response.
Yeah,
whoops.
I remember that before even anything happened. But that's when, it was like, oh, abandon Germany, no Votann for tournaments. And you're like, what the hell? It was just... But again, they're so quick to fix stuff. That's where I got to give it to them. And like myself, coming off of like 10 years of playing Horus Heresy, where we're so deprived of having like an FAQ or radas and stuff like that, where you're waiting 3, 4, 5 years to see the way GW plays and really caters to 40K, and I really do think it's because of the competitive scene, because you get to see. We've talked about the slots. I know people are probably rolling their eyes because they know where it's going to go, but without the competitive play, you never know where that ceiling is. This is how crazy shit can get. This is max. But if you never get to that point, like, you'll never know. And it's at that level, they're like, well, okay, you know what? That combo, that wombo combo is not supposed to be there. We need to fix that. But unless you take it to that point, you'll never know. And I think
you have to break it in order to fix it.
You do. And GW's like, oh, we're going to fix that. And like, you see the Death Stars, you can still build them, but they're slowly taking that apart where it's not that crazy Death Star list just rolling into your army and killing everything. Like, it's not that bad anymore. It's just, I know 40K gets a bad rap. People are like, oh, it's just so toxic and this and that. But like, they're thinking about the Flying Circus back in 7th, where it was like a 2+ rerollable army that just rolled in and fucked them up. And you know what? It's not like that anymore, guys.
Bark Star, what a ridiculous army concept.
It's not like that anymore. I promise. Like, check 40K out because you will not be disappointed.
And you're always going to have people who are going to be angry about it. They're going to be frustrated about it, and are going to. It's just the nature of people. I think 1/3 of the hobby is probably complaining. To be honest, like, if you look at the amount of stuff that goes on in forums, and I've so moved far beyond that I just, it doesn't even register anymore. Every once in a while, I'll be like, Have you thought about this? Say that to yourself in a mirror and see how it sounds coming back to you. No. Because maybe you're not looking at this right. And I get it. I've had stuff nerfed and I've been frustrated. No. I mean, I complained about all sorts of stuff in my years as a hobbyist. But what it really comes down to is, okay, this is the way the rule is, and can I make this work? That's why I've played Drukhari forever. They've never been a good army. They've had blips. And even when they were breaking people's spirits, I still didn't play that stuff. I wouldn't play the ridiculously broken stuff on purpose because I don't think that's fun to play against. Yeah. Do you want to win? Do you want to win with something that is unkillable, or do you want to win with something that is eminently killable, but you outplay your opponent? Yeah. What's more fun?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, for me, it's the latter. Like, I actually bought my Drukhari army right at the height of 9th. Everything, I was like, I've been wanting to play him since 3rd. I'm going to jump in. They're too crazy. They're getting nerfed. They're still too crazy. I'm like, I don't want to be the bandwagon guy. I'm going to hold off. I ended up jumping in with them right at the tail end of 9th. I had 2 games of 9th. 10th edition came out, and they're like, I built like 30 witches. And I'm like, oh, witches are really bad. So I leaned...
Combat is bad, and witches are worse.
Yeah, like, I leaned into Codex Darklance and self-proclaimed Darklance Daddy, because I've been really trying to get, reps in with Drukhari, and it's been a hard learning curve to learn a new system with an army that's very glass cannon. But after, playing for 3 months, I got it down to a point where, it can be a lot of shooting. It can be very hard to deal with. I would love for the witches and Incubi and a lot of the other units, not just having, Calibite Warriors, Ravagers, Scourge in my army. Once those other units get a little bit of love, I'll definitely bring them in, because I've got oodles of models just sitting there. It's just, you still want to bring a little bit of heat to the table so you can feel like you're competing. And then once I had the Marine stuff drop out, I was like, okay, you know what? I know the game. I know how to play my Drukhari now. I want to actually concentrate on Marines. And I think it actually made me a better player starting with Drukhari, because you poke out and you make a mistake, you're dead. Marines, I poke out.
They are absolutely punishing.
I'm not dead. I only lost half my squad. I'm like, oh shit, this is really sweet, pretty robust.
T4 and 3 up is great. T4 2 wounds 3 up, easy mode, baby.
Yeah, no, it's night and day. The only gripe I have is it is night and day based on speed. My Space Marines feel so slow. I'm like, oh, engage on all fronts, investigate. I can do this, and I'm like, with Marines, I'm like, I just blew the load. All my stuff dropped already. I'm pretty much fucked. I can't score that, right? It's just, there's no way. So it's...
unless you go Vanguard or Storm Strike.
Vanguard's
and even then, it's like, okay, now I got to lean into this. No. Steve and I just played a game on channel, and it was, I believe, what was I running? I think I had my Drukhari, and he had his White Scars. And I ran a bit of a silly Drukhari list. I played Drukhari for a very long time, and I'm a pretty good Drukhari player. And it's I think I've only ever on our channel lost a single Drukhari game with an artificially imposed time limit that we were trying out. It was early, like season 1, and I was playing Jim Vessel, and it was the end of 8th edition. I believe it was end of 8th edition. And we timed out on turn 4. To be fair, had we not, I table him. He knows it. I know it. But it doesn't matter. We're showing what we can do in the time frame that we have.
Yeah.
That's when we were filming in the back of a game store. We didn't have the time we have now. Things were a lot different. But that's the only game I've lost with on my channel. So I have a reputation of being a very good Drukhari player. I took purposely non-optimal units just for funsies, and the dice told a story that day, and that was Steve couldn't make charges. What do you do? Right?
That's how it goes sometimes.
He makes charges. He actually wounds with his chain fists, and suddenly it's a completely different game.
Yeah.
I mean, anti-vehicle 4-up, and he puts 2 wounds on a Tantalus with a squad of Terminators. What do you do, right?
Yeah. It's gonna be sad times.
That's the fun part. That's the fun part about it, and that's sort of those sad times. We're hoping to mitigate those at GameCon. We don't want you to feel like you're getting crushed.
Yeah.
We want you to feel like every game is important. That there are specific achievements and secondaries, and talk a lot about Horus Heresy. I really love the achievement concept in Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
This is, for those of you who don't know, you can play in a competitive Horus Heresy event, and you can choose what your secondaries are going to be and how you win the game. And it's all about, do I make X number of charges, kill this number of units, go this far, take these objectives? These are secondaries that I get to choose that I want to try to do, and if I can do those, then I'll win the game. I can get tabled, and I can still win the game.
Yeah.
And I love that concept, and I'm hoping that we can integrate some of those into the GameCon experience, so that even if you're getting absolutely stomped, you're getting wiped off the table, but you've held these 2 objectives, you've managed to kill out a character, you've managed to take this table quarter, you've managed to hold this for a certain amount of time, you're still racking up points that will aid the overall war effort. And that's the goal, is that every table that you're playing at has some kind of control over how the narrative is going to progress.
Well, that's awesome. And I think that's kind of the appeal with narrative as well. Even if you start to see it kind of shifting one way early, well, it's the narrative, man. You can always just jam your hand in there as TO, stir it up, and next thing you know, it's kind of bouncing out. I did something similar.
We have some ideas.
Oh,
we have some things.
I can imagine.
I can't tell you because I'm so excited. Nick and I were chatting about it the other day, and it's like, oh, that's such a cool idea. So we're going to do something that you may or may not see coming. However, because it's about fun, and because it's about telling a story, and because it's about creating this experience, honestly, it doesn't really matter if you win or lose.
Yeah.
What matters is that you're enjoying the game you're playing. That's all we care about.
And that's awesome. I think just from hearing this, I'm excited to see what kind of a show gets put on, and like how the overall event kicks off. I've hosted enough events. It's nice to kind of see it go back and forth, and you want it to be kind of that constant grind all the way to the end, where you finally see, hey, you know, like this side squeaked just ahead, and it was a blast the whole way. With Iron Without, one of the narrative Horus Heresy events I ran last year, I ended up using the Planetary Empire tile set. And the way I did it is because you can't always guarantee people are going to play, you know, towards the narrative. So what I had was like an inner ring and an outer ring of territories. And if you wanted to play a little bit harder games, you deployed in the inner ring. So those traders would deploy first, and then the loyalists could actually deploy against who they wanted to. So you're fighting like legions on legions or Mechanicum versus whatever. And then on the outer ring, it was a little bit more just beer and pretzel style game to try and appeal to both sides, because you'll never quite get the comp out. But it was really cool. And as we were playing through, it was 5 rounds. But, you know, round 1, traders just crushed. Round 2, a loyalist crushed. And we also made the missions very back and forth. But it was right to the end. And I think the traders ended up taking it only by like a handful of points. I want to say between like 10 or 12 victory points across the whole event, like weekend. It was amazing.
That's success, right? I think that's how we would measure success, is that it's that close and everybody's engaged.
Yeah.
We did very similar. Mini Wargaming, Matt from Mini Wargaming sent us a bunch of the tiles that they did, sort of Planetary Empire style tiles. We set up an entire city in Calgary at the GameCon 23. We had a lot of help. Michael Buckthorpe was there. Thomas Cruikshank from Calgary was there. These guys were helping us run the event, and we're going to have more people helping us this time. I'm not sure if Michael's coming. I know Tanya, the War Mistress, is going to be there with us.
Oh, awesome.
So we're going to have a lot of, hopefully even more, not sure 100% yet, because logistics are always fun. But we want to have more people that you know from our channel and from other places helping out as well. But we had this Planetary Empires map, and we had 5 different sections. So there were rows of 5 tables, and each of those areas was named after a Play-On member. So you had the exploding plains of Niklas. You had the Chaos Wastes of the Imogen Tycho Chaos Wastes, right? So we had the Tac Mechanicum, like they were all different, and we did the same thing. So, all right, so you're the attacker, defender, attackers, and defenders. Defenders go pick what table you're on, and then attackers decide who you're going to play.
Perfect.
So the concept was that if I have a Smash Mouth list and you have a Smash Mouth list, we should probably play each other.
Yeah.
It's not about winning; it's about how the war zone translates, and then each mission for each war zone was different. You never played in the same war zone twice, which was a little difficult, but we managed. So you never played the same war zone twice. Each war zone, each row of tables had its own missions, and the only mission that everybody played the same was the last one, which the funny part is we got the most, I wouldn't call it negative feedback, but maybe frustration feedback on the way that mission worked. It's the only one that I lifted from Games Workshop. It was one of their narrative campaigns, which is a cool mission. In retrospect, we probably should have given people more of a heads up on it. But again, these are things that we've learned. And working with Zach Rockner, I've talked to him a few times. He's the North American, I don't think he's play manager. He's the guy who does all of the narrative events for Games Workshop.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, we can probably pull in Mike Brandt as well if we need questions or what have you. But these are the guys who are the North American guys for GW, and ask them for their assistance and questions that they have and how they ran it. And I know people who attended the Grand Narrative. I wasn't able to this year, but I'm going to get help from them as well. My boy Nick and others, and just how they ran it and how it was from a player perspective and how it was from an organizer perspective. So we're putting a ton of time and effort into making sure that this event becomes a premier event, becomes something that people want to fly to, you know, because that's awesome. That's the most fun.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like you guys are going to make quite the impact, and that just gives me so much excitement and ambition to make the terrain look the best it can and provide like the best I can for that setup. I'm super pumped just to be partaking in it in any capacity, to be honest with you. It's just starting from, lowly gamer playing in my, garage or in the kitchen with Kleenex boxes back in the early days to like hosting events and being able to partake and kind of share it with the community and watch it grow to this level is just, it's amazing. So I'm super stoked and privileged to be able to jump in.
We're super happy that you're on board. We're happy that Red Claw is on board. We're happy to have as much support as we can. It really makes us feel good about what we do, because our goal is really to put as much positivity into the Warhammer play space as we can, and to see it coming back to us like this, it makes all those insane editing hours and late night hours trying to figure out a mistake we made and how do we edit this and how do we write that and how do we do this and how do we play that, and the mad painting sessions and all the stuff that we do to present this incredibly polished looking image. I mean, sometimes I wish we would turn the cameras around so you can see what we all look like at the end of a shoot.
Oh yeah. I've been there myself in the earliest days. We used to do battle reports, and what you see on a screen, be it a 40-minute bat rep or be it an hour and a half bat rep, probably translate to closer to like a 14-hour day. And that's not even like all the editing that you do. And I've been there. I remember it kind of like, all right, we're done. And you're just looking at the guys that's been filming for 12 hours. And you're like, just you're done. You just totally
Yeah.
spent. So I could definitely appreciate that. And you know what? That might be something kind of cool. Have like a blooper reel of like, we just finished filming back-to-back episodes, and look at this. Everyone's got their soul drained out of them because it's just grueling work, right?
It can be absolutely not soul crushing, but soul shattering because you just feel scattered by the end of it. And then you get the next release and somebody says, "Oh, hey, by the way, we'd love you if you could get this out in a week and a half." And we're like, "Sure, we can sleep when we're dead."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how. Like, we've got an amazing crew. I mean, Ben, Jesse, Tycho, Tack, Owen, Mubin, myself, Tycho, Nick, Steven. These guys are Brent. Who else am I missing? The mind boggler for me is I just had to try to make sure I remembered everybody, where it used to be like 4 of us or 5 of us. We have staff. We have a studio. We have bills, dude. Like, it's like, what have we done? And we've created this thing just because we wanted to inspire people to play. And now we bust ourselves ragged and we work our butts off and we present it in such a way as to make it to inspire people to play still. And 5 years on, and we're still going, and we love it.
Oh, that's all. Well, it's a labor of love for you guys. And
I will lose all the sleep in the world if I can share my joy of this game with just 1 or 2 people. Because if somebody, I genuinely love it, and every member of the team loves it. When someone comes up and says, "Hey, I love what you do," because that's validation. I mean, it's great if you support us on Patreon. It's great if you support us on YouTube. We love that. That helps. That grows the channel. That keeps the lights on. That pays for our editors. That pays salaries. That's wonderful. It's just as important to hear the feedback in person because it validates what we do. Because we are, by the time we're done, like, there's a new release coming out. I'm sure you've heard of it. It was released on Christmas Day, and I'm sure we'll be doing something with it. I'm not entirely sure what's happening, but I'm sure we'll have stuff releasing around that. But the amount of effort it takes to go into something like that is incredibly difficult.
I can imagine.
But it's worth it. When somebody says, "Hey, I loved when you did that," we're like, "Thanks."
Yeah, makes it real, and it's very, very inspiring to hear you talk about. We've got staff, we've got everything. That's growth, man. That's growth, and that just shows the success of what you guys are doing, and it shows how powerful the hobby community actually is when they can all jump
the positivity.
On board.
Yeah, the positivity of showing the hobby in its best possible light.
Yeah.
That's the goal, because there's a lot of negativity in the world in general.
Yeah. No, there really is, and I'll be
honest. People thrive on it.
Well, it's infectious. That's the problem. The nice thing, and why I like this hobby so much, is like I play this to escape that bullshit, right? Like I don't want real world coming into my hobby. I just want to keep the bubble here and enjoy. This is what it's about. And like you said, like I don't want to hear who you vote for, what your thoughts are on this and that. I just want to know, like, hey, what's your army? What do you like about it? And how's the game? Blah blah blah. What could I have done better in the game? Did I play it well? Like that's what I want to focus on, is that actual
expectation, that unspoken social contract.
No.
That exists at tournaments, especially, and competitive and narrative events. This is a space where we are talking about Warhammer.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not really a space for anything else.
No.
Because this is a celebration of this hobby, and that's the joy. All that other stuff is still going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
All the negative ads, all the clickbait, all the this and that, and it's all going to be there tomorrow. But today I'm in a room full of 150 or 350 or 1,000 nerds just like me.
Yeah. And everyone's just rolling dice.
That's it. If I could go back in time and tell 12-year-old me, who was, or 11-year-old me making D&D characters by himself in the basement, that keep going, kid, because one day this is where you're going to be. I get almost choked up thinking about that. Like if I could tell that kid, just keep going. Don't let anybody sway you from this, because this is okay.
Yeah.
That I wish that we had that. I wish that I had that. And I go out of my way when I'm at events, when I'm talking to fans, especially younger fans, to make sure that, hey man, if this was my son, how would I treat him? How would I want somebody he looks up to be treated?
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
make sure that they feel that they're important, because they are, because that's the future of our hobby.
Well, that's just it. If you don't have new blood coming in, the hobby dies.
Yeah,
Like,
the
you have to.
concept of gatekeeping and you this and that, blah, and all the crap that you see, because it just gets hate, and it gets internet cred. Well, what's that going to buy you? That and $1 will get you a loaf of bread. Like, that's about it, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing.
Yeah.
And it saddens me sometimes, because I hate to think that there's a kid out there that we've said or done something that would make them put them off the hobby, and I would never want that.
No, absolutely.
This is the greatest hobby I've ever been a part of. Pure and simple.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. I feel very much the same.
This is going to be a great podcast. We're just agreeing with each other for the last hour.
Well, yeah, it's, you know what, it happens though.
I love it.
When you're on that vibe, man. It just kind of just works out well. Like, I'm super stoked to see how everything's gonna just come together. For everyone listening, definitely check out Play on Tabletop. We're gonna have all the links in the description. We're gonna have the links to the GamesCon like actual site if you want to get your tickets. I think there's two different ones. There's like VIP tickets in general, from what I remember seeing on there.
I'm not sure if the VIPs are still available. I know they were selling out, but we haven't done a ton of advertising yet. I know TAC is in the process of working on some of those concepts, and then we're still finalizing. We need to work with David and Daniel, and sort out exactly what we want to see and do with them as well.
Yeah.
We have a pretty good idea what we want to do, but we're still sorting some things. But we want to involve as many people as we can and still keep it logistically feasible.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But I remember Red Claw Gaming from years ago, like way back in the 7th edition stuff.
Yeah, they've been around for quite a long time. They're one of the mainstay like hobby stores in the city.
Yeah, I seem to recall that. I seem to remember at one time going through Edmonton years ago, and when I was not an internet micro celebrity, and stopping in and seeing the place. But I think they've moved since then.
They have their new location it's off the chain. It is a fantastic setup. Yeah, it's great.
I wish we could have something like that in Vancouver. No. Rent is just too high, unfortunately.
It's kind of wild in BC right now.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why GameCon in Calgary and then GameCon in Edmonton, it's actually, I think we've done the numbers. Even if we brought everything with us, it would probably still be cheaper to run it in Alberta than it would be to actually try to run it in BC.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We've got the Wet Coast GT. It's not a GT. It's way bigger than a GT. But Wet Coast has been running for years and has been... I don't know if there's going to be an old world presence, but there's Sigmar, there's Lord of the Rings, there used to be a huge X-Wing presence, War Machine, Warhammer, big event every roundabout Easter, but in order to make it economically viable, we have to run it on an Easter weekend.
Yeah.
We used to run it in the summer, and it was great, but the cost to do so is astronomical.
Yeah. Absolutely
astronomical. And we watch as some of these rooms go empty for weekends, and it makes you wonder, where's the value?
Yeah.
Right. And that's just the realities of running stuff in Vancouver. Vancouver is such, from a Play on Tabletop perspective, it's actually incredibly difficult. It's like the worst place to run a business like this because we're geographically in the middle of nowhere. We're 3 hours north of Seattle, which is still way out of the way.
Yeah.
We're over the mountains from the rest of Canada. It's actually really hard to get to us from anywhere else in North America. It's a long haul. You look at, Mini Wargaming, and Scari's got his new place, and a lot of the guys back east just have a built-in population base.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Right? And it's a real challenge. I mean, Edmonton is a lot farther north than Calgary, but you guys draw from a huge area, and people are used to driving. Yeah. It's the big difference. In Vancouver, if we get an inch of snow, nobody goes anywhere.
It's over, yeah.
It is so over.
I think,
but that's just what it is.
It's the way. Well, I think the island has like 2 sanding trucks in total, and it's just when it drops, it's shut down.
Yeah, that's all they need. That's all they need.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, no, that's excellent, and I very much appreciate taking up your time and hearing all about the narrative. And I really hope anyone listening, if you were on the fence about coming to the event, I hope that this podcast has shed some light and inspired you to want to push your hobby skills, get out there, come down to the event and meet the Play On team, and just enjoy yourself and have fun. I think it'll be one of the biggest for the year. I think it'll be a massive event for us.
I really hope so. I really hope that it is going to highlight all the best parts of the hobby. Building on the success of what we did last year, and with you guys on board, I don't know how we can not be successful, because we're all on the same page as making this a destination to play, showing off the best parts of the hobby, and primarily having fun. We've had some armies show up last year in Calgary that were absolutely mind-blowing. Some of them were exactly what you would expect from a Warhammer army. Yeah. Some of them were completely 3D printed. The Gene Stealer army. Oh my gosh, that was just. If you can find the pictures, I think they exist in Play On. I think they might exist in GameCon. He won the favorite army as voted by everybody that was there. It was absolutely hilarious. It was the coolest army, but that's not something you would see at a traditional event. And that's kind of what we're after. Not that you have to do that, but to bring something fun and new and interesting, that's cool. And that's what it's about. It's about showcasing the best parts of the hobby and inspiring people to play.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. Well, yeah, thanks again for jumping on, and thank you all for listening and kicking in with us for our first episode to launch our season 4. Definitely looking forward to putting out more content for you guys, and we will catch you next episode. Catch you later.
Did you plug the Patreon? We need to plug the Patreon.